Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Today we have another first impressions, another day where I'm in my pajamas, and another day where there is a saw outside. So, you know, we're pretty much standard protocol at this point. This is a palette that, again, I was so kindly gifted for Christmas, and one that I knew that if I didn't receive this as a gift, I would have bought it myself, hopefully assuming it was still in stock, and it's still available. It's on Sephora, and I believe it's still available on the Melt website. The Melt Amor y Mariposa palette. This was their holiday release this year, which some people liked, some people didn't like. I really like it. I don't have a problem with these like little small pans personally, especially considering there are 20 shades in here and typically water melt palettes like 10 pans, so you get like double the amount of shadows. I'm assuming it's the same amount of product. I don't know. I don't frankly really keep track of that, but I really like the color story. I mean, I feel like Melt does a lot of greens and reds, but I'm here for it. And all of these deep purples, this is what I live for. I wish that Melt would come out with these shades in a palette that is permanent to their line, but I digress. I also was very kindly gifted the blush palette, which was a total surprise to me, but I love a good blush palette, you know that, so I'm so excited to have this. I will say it does appear very light. I truly don't know why Melt would ever do this. It kind of boggles the mind. They do look beautiful, although I don't know how well they would show up on deeper skin tones, frankly, so we'll just use that, I think, after I do my eyeshadow, because I don't really know what direction I'm going today. So let's just give a little swatchy swatch of this palette, shall we? Should I zoom in a little bit more? Let's see. Okay, so I have looked up the pronunciation of these shades, but I cannot guarantee that I will do them justice, so bear that in mind, okay? I apologize if I mispronounce anything. So the palette's kind of broken up into like rows, I feel like, color story wise. There's green, we have neutrals here, some like warm neutrals, almost like warm oranges, browns, and then we have more purples, and then like that red berry shade down here. So the first shade in the green row is the shade Cielito Lindo, which is a metallic green. I'm interested to see how the metallics perform in this palette, because Melt's metallics historically have not been my favorite, although it feels definitely less like flaky and crumbly than their shadows in the past. Then we have the shade Carino, which is a light green. It makes me so sad to ruin this butterfly imprint, but you gotta do what you gotta do. And then the shade Sentimientos is a deeper green matte. We have another shimmer, the shade MICHOACÁN, I think. I did look this up, but I've since forgotten how to say it, which is a darker metallic green, really beautiful like emerald tone. And the shade GUAMUCHIL is a darker matte green. So love this green row, love the range of depths, no complaints. And I feel like these tones are different greens than they have done, although I don't have the Beetlejuice palette, so I can't compare it to the greens in there, but I think those greens were pretty bright anyway. Maybe this one is similar to that metallic, but again, I don't have that to compare. Okay, I'm still filming. So now we have the like kind of neutral row. This is the shade Mensaje, which is a like marigold mustard shade, yellow, lovely. The shade Tequila, is a beautiful gold. Look at that. That's really shiny. I wish all of these shimmers were like this one specifically. And then the shade Teodoro is a pretty like neutral beige, actually, like a neutral light brown, which I don't hate. But this shade, next shade Señales, is a even lighter beige, which shows up on me, but it is a little bit light. But it does swatch, like obviously it's not just like a skin tone beige for me, but it's like a lighter, it is a lighter beige, frankly. And then we have the shade Mesquite, which is a beautiful copper shade. Both of these metallics are really shiny. And then we have the shade Maria, which is a beautiful like wine shade, like burgundy shade. Ooh, yes. This is what I come here for, Melt. Then we have the shade Mariposa, which is a beautiful metallic orange. Very similar, I want to say, to the orange shade in the Vita palette. The shade Abuelita is a matte bright coral. The shade Abrazos, that one I didn't look up, is a matte red, like a rusty red. The shade Nueva Vida is a darker red. Yes, please. The shade Shadow is a like a dark plum, like eggplant shade. Nube is a really beautiful purple. I don't know if I've seen Melt do a shade like this. It's a very bright purple. And then there's 3 more shades. I'm just going to swatch them on my hand, I think, rather than doing them all on my arm. So we have the shade Almohada, which is a, hopefully you can see that. Oops, these aren't going to be the best swatches, but you'll get the shades at least, which is a darker, more plummy purple. The shade Sagrado is a metallic, like pink. That's really pretty. And then the shade Perla is a bright matte red, which leans a bit more pink compared to like the shade here, which is Abrazos. So overall, I'm so happy with this color story, honestly. Like for me, especially for me, this is beautiful perfection. I can see myself reaching for this palette literally all the time. And that's the thing about me and Melt. We connect. I feel like they come out with color stories that I know I'm gonna like to wear. They come out with shades that I know I'm gonna like to wear. And I, well, hopefully perform well. Especially dark mattes. I feel like for me, it's difficult to beat them in terms of their dark mattes. And I feel like that's generally most people's opinions. So now we're going to do some up close swatches, as I like to do some individual swatches and like arm swatches and stuff, and then inspired by Lauren May Beauty, and then I will come and do an eye look. I'm going to start with the shade Abuelita, which is this coral. And I have primed my eyes using the NARS Smudge Proof Eyeshadow Base, and I have not set my lids. And I'm just going to run this through my crease as my initial blending shade. Lightly, because it's pretty pigmented, but I don't want it to be like too much, you know? I don't have to say anything. Look at that. Beautiful. Now I'm going to take the shade Perla, because apparently I can never resist doing red eyeshadow. I don't know what to tell you. And I'm going to run this through my outer corner of my crease with first impressions. Usually I don't do that crazy of a look, so I'm just gonna kind of stick to something relatively simple today. Literally, that blended itself. It blended itself. Oh my god. Ugh, I just love Melt's formula. Now I'm going to take the shade Maria and deepen my crease with this. Again, I don't really feel like I have anything to say because you can see for yourselves. Okay, so I'm going to do, surprise, surprise, a half cut crease. I'm going to hop off camera, do that, and then be back to put some shimmers on the lid. Okay, so I've cut my crease. Their evenness is questionable, but hey, isn't it always? So I'm just gonna take Perla a little bit and stamp that on my lid and run that over the front part of my crease as well. And then take Maria and put this just deep in my outer corner, and also lightly run this over the front part of my crease. I just personally feel like you can't get better than like a red burgundy crease. It's funny because I feel like I watch a lot of people who tend to prefer like blues and greens and like cool tones and stuff, and I just, like, don't get me wrong, I pretty much love every single color of eyeshadow, but warm tones and like reds, oranges, purples, pinks will just always be my favorite. I don't know why. Okay, so for my lid, I'm going to take the shade Mariposa in the middle and Tequila in the front part. But first, I'm going to take some NYX glitter primer and put this all over my lid where I've cut my crease. So now I'm going in with Mariposa. This one feels a little bit harder pressed, similar to like, I want to say the shades in the Vita palette. I do feel like, I mean, this is the problem with Melt, right? Like, so many of their shades are inconsistent. Definitely, though, easier to use than kind of, I feel like their older shimmer shadow formula was like very crumbly and a little bit harder to use. I do think that they have improved for sure. And then going in with Tequila. I'm just gonna wipe my brush off a little bit and then go in with Tequila, which looks very promising. And this one doesn't feel as hard pressed as Mariposa does. And it's definitely shinier. Then I'm just going to blend back and forth between Tequila and Mariposa. And then I'm going to do the same thing on my other eye. Okay, so the shimmers are on the lid. I mean, they're pretty like similar texturally in terms of Melt's other shimmers. Like, they're not super sparkly or anything, but they're still like pretty. I'm just going to take Perla and put that, just fade that into the shade Mariposa. I'm going to take a little bit of the shade Abuelita and run that over the edge of my crease. One more time. Just trying to bring back that coral. And then I'm going to take Mariposa and Tequila on my fingers. So you can see Tequila is very shiny. And just use that to intensify these shades on my lid. And then I'm gonna take a little, like, tiny little brush, and I'm going to, sorry if I keep checking, I just want to make sure that my camera's still recording because sometimes it can be really irritating. And then I'm just gonna stamp this very close to like the very edge of my cut crease. Just sometimes I feel like it can get a little bit lost and I want it to be like more precise. So doing that at the end helps. I feel for my lower lash line, I'm gonna keep everything relatively the same, except I'm just gonna take the shade Noob. Nube, and run that underneath my lower lash line. Whoa, pigment, holy shit. Okay, and so I'm gonna use the same shades otherwise. So I'm gonna take Monarcha and put that under my lower lashes just to give a little bit more depth. This eye looks a little bit crazy. I'm assuming that it will come out fine in the end after blending. And then I'm going to blend it with the shade Abuelita. For my inner corner and brow bone, there's nothing really in this palette that's going to work for my purposes, so I'm just going to take my highlighter that I'm going to use, which is the Melt Digital Dust Highlight in the shade Stargazer. It's basically just a champagne. And just put this on my inner corners and my brow bone. Somehow I got eyeshadow right here. Looks like something it shouldn't look like. And then finally, to end things off, I'm just going to put a black in my outer corner. I'm just going to take the shade Bonnie from the Gemini palette by Melt. Okay, so I've finished my eyes, but let's do some blush before I finish up. So you know what blush I want to use, which is this one. Should I use a more toned down one? I feel like it could just look really nice. Okay, nah, fuck it. I'm gonna take the shade Flor because I have to. So. I don't think necessarily known for being wearable and everyday friendly. Oh, I've never used a blush from Melt before, so this is like first time. Let me take my AirPod out and experience it all together. So I'm just gonna put it where I put my blush. But yeah, definitely would have liked there to be a better range of depth of blushes. Obviously we have this pink and then the shade Conmigo, which is that like kind of terracotta shade, but I feel like there could be a better gradient. If you're gonna do a blush palette, everyone has to be able to use it. So that's my opinion. Love the tone. For me, there's nothing better. Few things are better than a pink blush, which also is a controversial, not controversial, but maybe unpopular opinion. So my camera stopped recording. Poopy. I hope that I had some blush in here. I think I must have. But anyway, if I didn't, I used the shade Flor all over my cheeks. Obviously, I use the shade Flor as blush. I really love the color. I think it's beautiful. There's something about the, like, it applied fine. It's not patchy, blended and all that stuff. Something about the formula isn't like wowing me. It's just fine. It's fine. It's not like amazing, but it's definitely not bad. And that's kind of my first impressions on this one shade. But I do love the color of it. It's beautiful. So I'm going to finish up the rest of my face now, finish my eyes and all that shit, and then be back to give my first impressions thoughts on, I guess, the palette and the blush palette. Okay, and this is the finished look. Maybe not the most unique look I've ever done, but I love it a lot. Surprise, surprise. Pretty sure I say that every single video. On my lips, I used the NYX lip liner in Nude Truffle, which has been like my everyday lip liner recently, as well as my beloved Endless Cacao just in the center, and then I put the Tower 28 Shine On Lip Jelly in the shade of Magic on the top because I felt like a nude was called for and I've been loving a gloss. So here we are. Okay. Okay, so let's just thoughts on the palette. We all know it's a first impressions. I don't need to tell you that I've only used a handful of shades and I can't like speak to the quality or whatever performance of everything. The shades I did use performed like the mattes from Melt that I know and love. Color story wise, the shimmers again perform similarly. I think that they're nice. I think they're better than a lot of Melt shimmers that I've tried in the past, and they're nice. They're just metallics though, you know, they're not like anything crazy. I don't think Melt's shimmers are where they truly shine. I'm not going to Melt for their shimmers at all, but the mattes perform like Melt mattes always do for me. They are beautiful, they blend well, they build beautifully, there's depth. I just love it. I can see myself reaching for this palette literally all of the time whenever I need dark shades like these, like dark cranberries, dark purples, things like that are shades that I always miss in palettes and reach for from other palettes. So I feel like I can never have too many of them. There's a full saw going on outside and I kid you not, it's like you can barely see out the window. It's snowing so hard. So I don't know why you wouldn't just, I don't know, fucking call it a day, maybe, on the construction front. Anyway, palette, I like it. I'm not, like, I can never really say whether or not something is worth it. It's especially because this is an expensive palette. I think it's $91 or something, so that's just crazy, but is sadly on par with Melt's typical pricing scheme. I think, like, I feel like I always say this, but I just feel like if this was a color story that you really love and think that you would get a lot of use out of, and you know that you like Melt's formula, I would say you would not be disappointed and you'd love this palette, and it would probably be worth, well, I don't really know, but for me, it would be worth every penny just because I love depth, and dark mattes are something that I feel like I'm seeing more, but I'm always seem to miss for my palettes, and always seem to be like things that I reach for. So I love this, although I will say, does Melt do greens and reds and purples a lot? Yeah. So you more than likely probably already have similar shades if you have other Melt palettes. Like, you probably already have these greens if you have like Gemini. You probably have like similar-ish reds if you have their past 2 holiday releases, you know what I mean? So for that reason, I could understand why people might be disappointed in this color story, but for me and like what I reach for and what I like and what I use, I know that I will love this. I mean, it is a beautiful palette. It feels like very heavy. It's like obviously good quality. It's, you know, it's beautiful like packaging. It better be considering the price, but it's definitely expensive for sure. This blush palette, there's like pink shadow everywhere. It's getting everywhere, and every time I feel like I clean it up, it keeps coming back. Anyway, this blush palette, obviously I've only used this pink shade here, so I don't fucking know how the rest of the shades perform. When I do my 3 looks 1 palette with this palette, I will use these shades more. I'll probably just start using them now that I've actually used this in a video. But I liked the way it performed. Like, I don't really have any main complaints about it, but it's not blowing me away at the same time. And especially because, number 1, this palette is not cheap, and number 2, all of these shades are pretty light. Like, this maybe is a little bit more mid-toned, but I don't know why we need 3 of these shades that are so similar to each other and that look pretty light, at least in the pan. I don't think I've swatched any of them, but yeah. I mean, I do love this pink, and I think this is a really beautiful like terracotta shade, and this shade Sonrisa is a beautiful like caramelly brown. It's so pretty. I cannot wait to use that on my cheeks. But I mean, this is not screaming to me as something that I mean, I love it and I'm so grateful to have been gifted it, but it's not anything that I'm like, oh, this is the most. I don't feel the way about this that I feel about like my Likely Makeup blush palettes, for example. Like, I like it, but it's just, I feel like if you're gonna come out with a palette, most people should be able to use most of the shades. It's kind of my opinions on that. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I will definitely be featuring it more in the future, especially because it is still available, and hopefully it might go on another sale at some point in the future, depending on how long it's like sticks around for. So, you know, hopefully this video is still relevant and helpful. And hopefully the comparison swatches that I did from other palettes will be helpful as well. I didn't really have time now to sit down and go through them, but later I'll have time to go and swatch them out, so hopefully you enjoyed that as well. Let me know what you think of this palette collection. The collection as a whole didn't draw me in as much as the palette did. Felt very weird to have like bright pink lipsticks in the middle of winter, but you know what? At least it's something different and not just like another red lipstick. I don't know. Anyway, it's not relevant anymore because the holidays are gone. I gotta go to work, so I will leave you now. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I would love to see you in the next one. Bye!